Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Buyouts, Business, and Bourbon. And we have two very exciting guests today that I'm very excited about. Paul Sullivan, co-founder of Sullivan Tire, Joe Zaccheo, current CEO of Sullivan Tire and Auto in Boston area. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the Sullivan's history in the tire and auto business, which is fascinating, and then their transition to employee ownership, which again is really interesting. So I want to hear the story from the horse's mouth, let's say. And we're not here to really banter much about Boston and New York sports, although we could probably fill a whole hour with bantering, as Paul is accustomed to. But I'm so glad you guys are here in all seriousness. I think this is a great topic, and I think people will want to hear your story, and I think it's a great story. So without any ado, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourselves and then delve into a little bit of the history of Sullivan Tire and how it all started with your family.
Okay. Thank you, Gerry. The history of Sullivan Tire. In 1955, my father was working for Firestone Tire, and he was running a store that had just received an accolade that it was the top store in the country. A couple months later, he got a notice from Akron, Ohio. Due to the post-Korean War rebuild, they were going to have a massive layoff. And he would have to lay off half of his workforce. Now, he had about 10 employees there at the time, but they all helped him realize the American dream of owning a home. So on his way home that night, he's thinking, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this, lay people off. And lo and behold, it was serendipity. He sees a business for rent sign at a stop sign in Rockland, Mass. And if you would go to two houses down on the right, please knock at the front door. Door was answered by Mrs. Washburn. She had just lost her husband. He ran a little cap shop and garage where you could do all the work out on the driveway. There was no inside to speak of, just to have a desk and store some tires.
Wow.
And there were two retreading molds for passenger tire retreads. So they talked, and he says, I think I can do this. He went home that night, said to my mother, Mary, let's go into business for ourselves. At the time, there were 7 children, 7 siblings.
I can imagine Mary's response.
Oh, yeah. Well, who was going to pay for the shoes? And then, soon there would be 10 Sullivans. So 10 Sullivans. And my mother drove, and we lived in the country. But my father gave his notice the next day because he would not turn his back on those employees who helped him realize considerable gain of obtaining this home. So, listen.
So Paul, it's more about employee loyalty to your employees than it was even about taking the risk, right?
That's right. So after 68 years, here we are today, celebrating our 70th anniversary, but 68 years as we're discussing ESOP and getting close to announcing ESOP, we said, let's go the full circle here. It started by recognizing our people and maintaining loyalty. And after 68 years, rather than take private equity or be swallowed up by another enormous brand where who knows what would happen to our people.
Yeah, it's true.
We decided ESOP was the best way. And let's give everyone a little bite of the apple.
That makes a lot of sense. Paul, we work on a lot of ESOP transactions, and obviously you know that one of the biggest pieces is the succession plan. And you're very lucky to have Joe right there by your side. Joe's been with Sullivan for what, 25, 26 years, Joe? Something like that?
It'll be 29 years in December.
29.
Yep.
So the succession plan is probably one of the most important pieces. And Joe, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got into Sullivan? Because I think that the Sullivans probably should have adopted you by now. You should probably have a Sullivan last name. But
Well,
tell us a little bit about.
I am an adopted Sullivan. Yeah, so my background is I worked for a CPA firm in Quincy, Massachusetts, and Sullivan Tire was one of my accounts. And I would come in at the end of the year and check the books and the records. And I did that for 5 years. And then after 5 years, in the middle of all that, got married, had a couple children, and I said, my wife said, how's your career going to be? What are you going to focus on? And I said, I think I'd like to work for one particular company. And so I talked to, Paul and his brother Bobby, and, they brought me in. I didn't have a title. I just started doing the budget for the company. And then, the company was smaller back then. There was about 300 employees in maybe 20 locations. And I remember my interview, and Bob Sullivan said to me, you have to remember when we make a decision around here, we have to keep in mind we're making a decision for 300 families. And fast forward 29 years, now we're making a decision for 1,500 employees. So that culture part of taking care of employees and customers has always been there from day one. And so I came on board and, got into the technology part of the business a little bit. And you remember something called Y2K, which our programmer at the time said, look, I can take care of the sales part of the business, but for general ledger and accounts payable and financial reporting, you're going to have to bring in a modern system. So that was kind of another big venture on the backside. And that allowed me to meet a lot of people and start to learn the business from the backside. And then, fast forward, there's been a lot of M&A over the years. Just to give you a little bit about Sullivan Tire, everyone knows us as Sullivan Tire and Auto Service. So right now we have 83 retail stores that, as Paul mentioned, is certainly tires, but does full automotive work as well. Brakes, tune-ups, all the flushes, all the factory schedule services that the manufacturers recommend. We handle all that. We also have a distribution department, a wholesale business. So we sell, crazy as it sounds, to our competitors. Other mom and pop tire stores, we sell to car dealerships, and we sell to national chains. And, we said, well, if a tire is going to be bought and sold in New England, we'll have something to do with it. And we pride ourselves on making multiple deliveries a day. So we've become a mobile warehouse for a lot of our customers. And when some of our customers don't have a succession plan, we're usually first call. Gee, we know a lot about your company. We know you treat your employees very well. How do we get part of this? And we've been able to grow a little bit that way over the years as well. And we have a truck division, multifaceted. We still do retreading, medium radial truck tire retreading. We do road service for our commercial customers. We have a big off-the-road business with 10 boom trucks out there. And we also have a lift installation and service inspection business as well. And we got into a car wash a couple of years ago with one of our acquisitions.
Really? Wow, that's something.
Yeah, so we try to be diversified, but we definitely, the only way it's going to work is with exemplary customer service and treating employees, like Mr. Sullivan said, as a member of your own family.
So, Joe, you have a lot of responsibility for kind of the Sullivan legacy carrying on for many years because you're a relatively young guy. So the succession plan is really important. I think building a team around you, Joe, is probably essential for the survival and legacy.
You just hit on the key point. It's a team here. It's a team effort all around. We have great employee engagement. Our employee engagement scores have been off the charts when we've done engagement surveys. We love to develop from within. We're working on development programs all the time. We created our own leadership development program almost 20 years ago and have placed many people in new positions. that's probably the hardest thing we've had to do is when you have someone that's a rising star or someone that's been successful running their department or division to move them and get them more rounded acumen to the business. But it also adds to additional development for people underneath them to grow. And so we have a healthy pipeline of talent, and the future is very bright.
No, that's really great. And I know, Paul, I don't know how long you're still doing commercials, advertising on the Patriots and Red Sox, and that's why everybody in the Boston area knows Sullivan. You guys have done a great job kind of expanding your presence there with great advertising. And I don't know, Paul, who's taking over the commercials at some point? Are you going to keep doing those, or?
I'm going to keep doing them, yeah. I was just at Fenway Park the other day doing a few spots. Yeah.
Did you happen to do the Yankees versus Red Sox games or no?
Well, listen, I'm not going to get into a long dissertation about that rivalry, but Gerry, I'll just say one thing. 5 out of 6. Thank you.
Okay. Well, the timing of this podcast was not perfect for the Yankees, but we'll get you back.
I understand that, but Joe has a huge responsibility here. And what it is when the referee puts the pigskin down on the field and 11 people line up to move that football, Joe is the quarterback. He's taking the hike. He's calling the play. He's taking the hike. Now, everybody else has to do their part. And as Joe mentioned, it is truly a team effort. And that's the way this company, this brand, Sullivan Tire, known throughout New England, has been able to continue to grow.
So Paul, when you guys thought about an exit, as you and your brother are starting to get a little older, you don't know how long you're going to be in the business, you talk about an exit, you look at different options. Bobby tells me the story, your brother Bobby tells me the story on how he was at Publix supermarket on vacation in Florida and went to the deli counter at Publix and wanted to get some roast beef. And he starts small talking with the gentleman behind the counter that's cutting his roast beef, and he sees a sign that says, "We are 100% employee owned." And Bobby asked this very simple question, what does that mean? And basically, I remember Bobby telling me the story that he means that this guy responded by saying, "I have $1 million in my ESOP account." That's what it means. And of course, your brother was intrigued by that. And he basically said that he gets allocated stock every year for the last 25 years, and it's going to help him retire. So I think your brother came back, called his attorney, and said, "Hey, look into this ESOP thing." And I don't know how many months later, but I think it became kind of a reality in discussions and seeing how this looks. And I know for you guys, it's literally the square peg in the square hole. Is that legacy was important, keeping control of the company is important, not changing your name, and then obviously, as you've talked about already, employee loyalty to your long-term employees, and then knowing that you're going to make their financial life that much better was really important to you guys.
Yeah, no, that's right, Gerry. But you never go into business with an ESOP becoming an aspirational goal.
True.
In those days, it's survival. It's a tie score each and every day. You got to do better than the day before. Continue to move that football down the field. That's progress. And that's what we've been able to do. Now, all of a sudden, we're starting to get a little older. And we read about how important it is to have good succession, people you can trust. At the end of the day, what we're all doing is building trust, earning trust. And Joe was just a natural. He's done a wonderful job. And he started out as an accountant here, doing my taxes. I still haven't had one tax return in Joe's entire career. I owe money each and every year. He's consistent, but
You're doing your part, Paul.
yeah. But You know, we're very fortunate. We look back, we're very fortunate. We have the horses, we have the people to be able to continue to keep this brand sustaining throughout New England, growing and providing more jobs and ultimately a better way of life for people who go home on Fridays and want to know if they're getting ahead in life. I can't think of a bigger responsibility.
Paul and Joe, what has been the employee response? Because I know that when this was first announced, we were involved with the announcement, and I saw all the press that you guys got up in Boston on TV because you're such a well-known brand, and no one really understands employee ownership and what it really means. But I know when your employees are told now they're the owners of Sullivan Tire, and now that it's had some time to sink in since you went ESOP, what's kind of is the retention been a little bit better, or is it too early to tell? And what's the employees' kind of attitudes or reactions? Is there anything different?
Well, Gerry, I'm going to let Joe pipe in, but I'll just tell you at the outset, when we finally decided to announce on October 30th of 2023, we called everybody in the main office into the conference room, and we said, we have some news we want to tell you. Joe and I are standing in front of them. And I said, we've sold the company. You could hear a pin drop. And we're looking out at a sea of people, many of them with 20, 30 years with the company. Right away, we had a sense of responsibility, enormous responsibility. And then we said, we've sold it to you people. So if you look to your right and look to your left, shake hands with the new owners. And the big cheer erupted. They certainly couldn't believe it until Joe went into his dissertation on what it all means for them. But he simplified it and said, this is an added benefit. It's going to cost you nothing. Each year you're going to get a statement showing how many shares in the appreciation of the share price. And it's continued to grow over time. And after 6 years, you'll be fully vested. Wow, people said. So we're owners. Yes, you are the owners.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's not an easy concept to teach that you're going to get shares every year. The shares are going to hopefully grow in value so that it's going to be a real meaningful number at your retirement time. And I think that especially your younger workforce can get really excited about kind of growing their way through, rising up the ranks at Sullivan, and they can do that much better in their own financial planning and their own finances. So it's really great.
Yeah, and just to add one other point from that meeting. So one of the employees looked at Paul and said, "So you work for me now?" But you're right. How do you explain this to 1,500 employees? Because it's a concept that takes a little bit to wrap your mind around. But I think what we've been able to get through is that it's a long-range plan. It's a retirement plan. There's no money out of your paycheck each week like the 401k, but you're rewarded for your hard work, your efficiencies, your ideas, your expense saving strategies, and just coming up with new things that we can get involved in. So all that has definitely, and that was part of our culture from day one, but it takes on a little bit more value now that you're going to get a share price once a year and more shares like we were just saying. So that was one thing. We also did a road show, and we had our HR department create an ESOP communications committee, and there's about 12 or 13 employees on it from all different parts of the company. And we went out and blanketed all the stores. I mean, we have 130 locations that we had to get to and spend some time in each store. We've also created multiple videos, short snippets, some of them a little longer, just to explain that ESOP run companies operate at 25% more profitability than non-ESOP companies. And employees of an ESOP company retire with 2.5 times the retirement balance a non-ESOP company has. So, and we didn't pull back any of our benefits that we were already offering. I mean, we had 401k match, we had all the disability programs, life insurance, a Hallmark or Cadillac medical plan. We, talk about longevity. We have a longevity program, and we have over 25% of our employees with 10 years or more employment with Sullivan Tire. And once you hit that 10-year, you're rewarded with a bonus check every year, and it goes up in 5-year increments. So we're able to maintain all that and still grow the business. I mean, we're all about growth. The population in New England isn't growing. The market share is not really growing. So how do you survive and thrive? And being able to offer business owners that their employees will be now part of ownership of Sullivan Tire, that carries a little bit more when they're trying to decide where they're going to, sell their business to. So there's a lot of benefits. And I guess to answer your question on retention, we're starting to see the retention get a little bit better. Some of the things that we run into is employees don't really understand what the job is. Working in a bay, it's hard work, especially on a day like today, it's 100 degrees out. But we're trying to explain the long-term benefits of being part of, to Paul's point earlier, the American dream of owning your own company. And this is a tremendous concept.
And Joe, when you're hiring new people, are you getting people asking you about what does employee ownership mean? Because I'm sure when they're going for interviews at Sullivan Tire, they do their research on you guys and see that you're a newly ESOP or employee-owned company. So I'm sure that question comes up on every interview.
It comes up on every interview. Our hiring managers are explaining it. We have a hot list or frequently asked questions that answers quite a few of the questions that come up. And in 6 years, you're fully vested. I mean, that's not that long of a time horizon.
No,
yeah.
6 years is great.
Yep.
It's funny because in times where we're asked to explain this, if you work for a publicly held company like a Walmart, for instance, only the very senior executives are given stock options or restricted stock. So the majority, 98% of the people that work at Walmart do not get stock ownership. Whereas like in a company like yours, everybody down to every level in the company, the top levels, the administrative levels, everyone has the opportunity to get stock. And that's why the ESOP is so rare. And that's why both Democrats and Republicans, they don't agree on much, but I know they agree on employee ownership. And Congress has been supporting this for a long time. And my theory on why there's only 7,000 ESOPs, because many people ask me all the time, if ESOPs are so great and there's so many benefits, why are there only 7,000 of them? And my theory is that when companies, whether it's a tire and auto company or a cement company, the owner goes to research his or her exit options. They go to their lawyer or they go to their accountant and get a referral to a middle market investment banker. And typically 95% of those bankers do not do ESOPs. So the owners maybe didn't even know an ESOP existed, and had Bobby not gone to that public supermarket, who knows? Sullivan may not be part of an ESOP. So it's kind of a fascinating concept on how undermarketed employee ownership really is. But it's great that you guys embraced it and took it on and went through the process.
Yeah. Earlier we mentioned the huge amount of M&A going on in our industry, the tire and automotive. The biggest names throughout New England and the East Coast, for that matter, we're all merging or consolidating. So naturally, everybody starts knocking on our door, calling us, emails. Joe's getting a ton of them, myself, my brother Bob. But after a while, what are you really trying to accomplish? Are you trying to take the money off the table? Or do you really care about people? And that when we answered that question, it was a quick answer. We cared about people, the people who helped us, get to where we are today. And that is a legacy brand known throughout New England and throughout many parts of the country on the great service and the way we reach people with a huge footprint.
Is your dream to grow Sullivan beyond the New England area? Do you see yourself growing? I know nationally is a little aggressive, but I mean, do you see yourself continuing to grow and buy up kind of smaller tire and auto companies and keep growing, or do you think it'll be a sustainable rate or high growth?
Yeah, well, since we've announced it, now I want Joe to chime in on this too, but since we announced in October of 2023, we've acquired 10 locations. 10. And let's say there's about 10 to 11 people at each location that we're creating jobs, creating family wealth. And those people, as they receive that statement each and every month, they're going to be excited about being an owner of a company that they not only work at, but they know and their neighbors know and the community in which we serve knows. So,
well, they're excited to grow the value too, because when they work harder and they see the company more profitable, they're going to see their share price increase, like in the stock market with publicly held stocks. But you're a privately held company, but they get a once a year valuation, and they'll get excited when that value. Trust me, they'll track that valuation because they know how many shares they get, how many new shares they get, and what the valuation is, because they're going to see their wealth growing. And so I agree with you. It's a very exciting opportunity for your company to keep growing, and especially these newly acquired companies are probably really excited as well to be part of an ESOP.
Well, we're well known in the community, and I think that was another side benefit, or actually more than a side benefit. It was something that Paul and Bobby and us talked about quite a bit. Is we want to stay community involved and support the communities. And a national company coming in, they're going to have different nonprofits and services that they're going to promote or fund for, but yet we're in so many communities here, we would never want to lose that. So that's was another thing that we go on, heavy community involvement. And then a little bit slight spin-off of a traditional profit sharing plan is the shares are coming in contractually every year. So whether we have the best year ever or a tighter year, the shares are growing in your account every year. So that's another, benefit of tracking your retirement savings or portfolio. And it's nice, the statements come out, they look like a stock certificate. And so people, it's becoming tangible. We're on our second valuation now. We should be getting the results any day now. And, we'll be able to start tracking our progress and start doing some projections and let people know where things will be, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. And then as far as growth goes, we have no retail presence in Connecticut yet. So, there's a whole area there that's available for us. We do distribute in Connecticut, and we like to be known as Uncle Sully out in the marketplace. We're willing to help companies with anything they have, whether it's advice on credit, running a budget, HR issues, IT issues. Is it succession? Whatever there. I mean, and we've, haven't talked about this yet, but we got a lot of calls from a number of different companies about, wow, ESOP, give me the 101 on ESOP. You guys are, a well-known company. What made you decide? How does it all work? And so, we got a good lesson over the past 2 or 3 years on how it all works. And like you said, Gerry, there's a lot of benefits completely blessed by the government on both parties. And, it really is a way to keep employees engaged and what their efforts are paid off. Like you said, there's not, a few people at the top with all the value. Everyone shares in the value of the company. And here, when, there's a lot of uncertainty right now in the world and certainly in the economy, another benefit is ESOP run companies perform better in down times. So, we're kind of living that right now.
No, that's good to hear. And, I do get asked quite a bit too. And I don't know if people ask you when they ask for references on the phone, but, what are the downsides of the ESOP? And, the only thing I'll tell people is you have to be passionate about going through this process, because I know it took a while to get the Sullivan Tire process done. It just took a while. You have many locations, appraisals, and all that. But I try to tell people there's CPAs, there's lawyers, there's valuation folks. There's a lot of people involved with the ESOP transaction. So it's not something that happens overnight versus a private equity or one of your competitors comes in, looks at your books, makes an offer, they send you an email, and you either say yes or no, and then the deal gets done in 30 days. The ESOP is not like that. So I think the ESOP is something that, like, you guys are a great example. You want the ESOP to last for hopefully many generations of people, and you have to go through the process. It's not quick, but you get the A team, you get the right valuation folks, the right attorneys, and the right accountants, and it all gets done correctly. So I'm glad you guys went through the process. And do you have any closing comments? And you can include any comments about your Red Sox or Bruins or Celtics had a rough year against the Knicks, I know, but I don't know. You probably don't want to talk too much about that, but let me know any closing comments.
Yeah, I could fill that up pretty quickly. It's nice to see the Knicks in the playoffs. Well, I don't think they've been in the playoffs since Willis Reed. But anyway, the one thing I would say that people who have done an ESOP or are contemplating it, you have to continue to celebrate with your employees on statement day. What do I mean by that? When they get their statement, we need people out there, no matter where the location is throughout New England, showing people the appreciation in the number of shares and the share price. And then they feel better. And there's a great domino effect if you can do that. Easier said than done. Last year we did a good job. This year I hope we do even better. So, yeah.
I'm sure you will. And anything to say, Joe?
Yeah, I'd say, the Sullivan brand is very powerful. It's far-reaching, and it's really a great challenge to all of us, our employees, to carry the mission forward, to keep the company running strong, loyal, integrity, and just treating the customers with the utmost respect and exemplary customer service. And that's what's going to win in the long run. I mean, everybody knows nowadays to get someone on the phone and get a problem solved, good luck. But not here. We still have someone answer the phone at the front desk. We have a call center. Our employees are all trained to problem solve, and we run a very high net promoter score, over 86, 87, 88, continually on a 30-day rolling average, in a type of industry where it's a tough purchase. The price of tires has gone up dramatically over the past several years. Labor is very expensive. The cars are very sophisticated. And you know what? People want to keep their car running now. I think the average age is close to 13 years now. And we stand behind our work. Hey, we're not perfect. If we make a mistake, we'll fix it. No problem.
That's great. You guys have a great story. Great company, and employee ownership fits you well. And I really appreciate you guys coming on and telling your story today. And I hope that the viewers and listeners really can appreciate it, because I know they will.
Well, I know Joe's excited, and I am too. Even though I don't drink bourbon, I know this is going to be a beautiful bottle, not a little shot. It's going to be a nice new Manhattan bottle. And
you're going to get a customized bottle, both of you, and this is the time that you guys should start drinking bourbon, because I know neither one of you are bourbon drinkers, which is really why we haven't talked about bourbon yet. But you will get your bottles of bourbon as being great guests today, and we're excited. Thank you guys for jumping on today. I really appreciate it.
Take care.
Okay.
Have a great day.